Greetings, free thinkers. Welcome to the Hoggcast. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing fine. I'm certainly not after everything that's happened, as you know if you're watching this channel. This man you can see on your screen is, in my opinion, the devil. This is a man with immense power. This is a man who can't not know he has this power. This is a man who, over the last 48 hours, has banned the president from his platform, which he himself refers to, this is Jack Dorsey, as the public square, the virtual public square, the modern public square. He's banned him 3 times. Not many people know that, and I'll explain why. The first time was the main banning at real Donald Trump's main account. The second banning was when Donald Trump tried to get onto Twitter using a government account. They shut them all down, those government accounts. Government accounts, elected officials accounts. The third one was when, and in my opinion, if I knew Donald Trump personally, I would say to him, you shouldn't have done this, but he tried to get on Twitter using a new account that he made, or an old account that he had before. I'm not quite sure. They've cottoned on, which I knew they would, and they banned him. He shouldn't have done that. It made him look weak, in my opinion. That's not a hard criticism of Trump, by the way. So, he's been banned 3 times. Now, we've got 2 clips to watch today that we're going to get into in a minute, okay? They are in regards to all this insane censorship and the direction we're heading. Now, the mainstream media and the leftists, who are oblivious, as always, to the the consequences of their actions, they're calling for... They think it's going to be utopia now. They think they've finally got their utopia. They don't understand what they're doing, and I'm going to make the case today in this video, responding to the 2 clips we're going to watch, about what they're doing. So let's get into this video. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell and share this video around. There's a share button down there. If you're on Twitter or if you're on Facebook or wherever, if you could share it only takes a moment. When this is needed now more than ever, whether it's a small creator like me or a big creator like one of the big ones. YouTube is trying to section us off and stop us from growing. So if you could do that, that would really help this small channel grow. Let's go. Okay, so let's dive into the first clip.
And now that Democrats have the gavel. Freshman Congressman Madison Cawthorn was just sworn in less than a week ago. He joins us now. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. You gave a now famous speech talking about standing for liberty, as you did metaphorically and physically. How in this age where Democrats control so much, not just political power, but also on social media and in our culture, what's to come for freedom-loving people?
Well, you know what, Pete? I believe the answer is some form of trust busting. I think we've got to reform Section 230. We have to allow the free market to do its work. Because, you see, when you rip the tongue out of somebody who would speak against you, you don't prove them to be a liar. Rather, you just prove that you're paralyzed with fear on the altar of oppression, that you're terrified of what they're going to say against you. So these 60,000 conservative accounts on Twitter that have now been permanently banned, I'll tell you, this sets a very dangerous precedent and something we have to fight against.
But Congressman, how do we do anything about it? I mean, the president was right to...
Okay, I was going to interrupt early on in the clip, but the clip's a minute long, and I wanted you guys to watch it because it's a minute long, but there's something very important I want to say. So let's go back, because there's a couple of points I want to make. So we'll watch it again, and I'll stop it. There's 2 points I want to make.
Oh, and now that Democrats have the gavel. Freshman Congressman Madison Cawthorn was just sworn in less than a week ago. He joins us now. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. You gave a now famous speech talking about standing for liberty.
Yeah, but it's alright you standing for liberty. It's like, I'll tell you what it's like. It's like, imagine a man. As the Titanic's sinking, there's a man standing on the bow, and the Titanic's completely upright, slowly sinking into the waves. And there's a man upon the bow talking about, giving a vainglorious speech about the amazing nature of life jackets and how life jackets are the best thing ever, and you know, we really need to stick by this idea of life jackets. Meanwhile, there's thousands of people around him in the water without life jackets. They're freezing, they're drowning, and they have no life jackets. And then you have the guy on the bow who's talking about how we really need to have a discussion about life jackets whilst the Titanic's sinking. That's what this seems like to me. It seems like talking about this amazing speech. You gave a now famous speech about liberties and freedoms. Meanwhile, those liberties and freedoms are being taken away. The reason why the left, and in America the Democrats, want to lower the voting age to 16 is because it's known, it is well known across that Western Hemisphere, not just America, that the younger someone is, the more impressionable they are, the more likely they are to listen, not just listen, but to hold on to every word the teacher says. They're likely to still be in education when they're 16, and we all know which way politically teachers lean. You can't make it in the educational field if you're a conservative. It just doesn't work. So who are they going to vote for? We had the same push here in the Brexit referendum. They wanted 16-year-olds to vote. They were trying to say, oh, well, you know, it's going to be their future. It's going to be their future, so they have a right to vote. Well, in that case, why don't you let toddlers vote? It's their future too. You know why you wanted to, or they know why they wanted to, and so did we. So that's the point I want to make here. He's talking about a vainglorious speech, a fabulous speech, I say, a fabulous speech. Meanwhile, the freedoms that this speech was about are being eroded. The Democrats haven't even taken full control yet. They don't do until the 20th. And look at how they're acting. Not only do they have the three branches of government, they also have all the institutions. You will notice in life that Republican people or right-wing people are heavily concentrated in the private sector, and left-wing people are heavily concentrated in the public sector. That's because they are infested into the institutions in society. They work for all of the institutions because they know their ideas are never going to be challenged. The reason why the left is petrified of the right is because they know that their ideas will fall to pieces the moment that it is presented with a conservative counter-argument. This happens all the time. That's why they want a world where conservatives will never again be able to speak.
As you did metaphorically and physically. How in this age where Democrats control so much, not just political power, but also on social media and in our culture, what's to come for freedom-loving people?
Well, you know what, Pete? I believe the answer is some form of trust busting. I think we've got to reform Section 230. We have to allow the free...
So that was the second point I want to make. They're still making the same arguments. We've got to reform 230. They were saying that for 4 years. They had a chance. They could have chased Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg out. They could have done to the Democrats what the Democrats have done to them, because it's a cold war. It was a cold culture war. It's now a hot. The culture war's now gone hot, and the Democrats know this. Left-wing people know this. They're soldiers in this culture war, and right now, and for a long time actually, if you think about it, Republicans, especially the rhinos, Republican in name only, have been acting as non-combatants in a war. And then they sit there and scratch their head and wonder why they're losing.
Free market to do its work, because you see, when you rip the tongue out of somebody who would speak against you, you don't prove them to be a liar. Rather, you just prove that you're paralyzed with fear on the altar of oppression, that you're terrified of what they're going to say against you.
That's true. And that goes back to what I'm saying about how right-wing people are concentrated in the private sector, left-wing people are concentrated in the public sector, because they want control of the institutions. They've got control of the institutions. That way they can, when the right-wing people who work in the private sector have children, their children go to school, their children will come home thinking whatever the teacher thinks. And that's exactly what happens. And I'll leave it there, but we'll move on to the next clip. Okay, so this is the second clip I want to show you. This is Senator Pat Leahy. Now, this just goes to show you everything that I've been saying about the Democrats, the mainstream media, who are the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, and their subservient, happily subservient, allies in the rhinos, a Republican in name only, Republicans, alleged Republicans. Anyway, this is Senator Pat Leahy. He is totally against Donald Trump. Now, what they're doing is they are whipping up the low information people. They're whipping them up. Low information doesn't necessarily mean low IQ or low intelligence. It just means that someone might, for example, work hard every day. They pay their taxes to feed their children and they love their wife. They come home and then they switch on CNN after a long hard day at work. And they think what they see on CNN is real when it's a fabrication. You know that, I know that. But the low information people don't know that. Now, there's been this ridiculous talk, started with Nancy Pelosi, who rang up the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and she said she's worried about Donald Trump having the access codes to the big weapons, okay? And it is being parroted here by Pat Leahy, the Senator Pat Leahy, who's saying he's worried about Donald Trump having those codes, the nuclear codes. What are you talking about? Honestly, what do you think's going to happen? Donald Trump is the only president in the last 25 years who hasn't started an overseas conflict. And you're worried about him having codes to the nukes? You watch a war start after the new incoming administration. You watch. Anyway, let's take a look at this clip.
Weapons and all that. I mean, he's acted in a deranged fashion. Here's a person.
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt this straight away. He's saying that Donald Trump is acting in a deranged fashion. Any of you who are well aware of the culture war and up to date in how left-wing people operate, you will know that this is textbook projection. He's getting the word out there, deranged, immediately to project from what he's about to say. You remember, I can't remember who it was, but there was a Democrat who brought Kentucky Fried Chicken into the chamber. And to deflect from them devaluing and disrespecting the chamber, the first thing they did is accuse the Republicans of disrespecting and devaluing the chamber. And then he proceeded to eat Kentucky Fried Chicken in an exaggerated, disgusting manner with like grease dripping down his chin. That's projection, and he's doing it here. He's making a vainglorious accusation that Trump is deranged, and then he proceeds to make a deranged, paranoid, delusional statement about Trump launching nukes everywhere. Take a look.
Well, I think the president should be removed. I hate to think of him being down there with having access to nuclear weapons and all that. I mean, he's acted in a deranged fashion.
You're acting in a deranged
person who incited criminal activity.
My good God. My good God. He didn't incite it. He asked people to attend for a rally. That's all. That isn't inciting anything. Something Democrats can't get, and people on the left side of the divide in general, is that people have free will. People can do what they want. So if someone organises a rally and then person B attends, if person B does something bad at the rally, it's not person A's fault because person B is acting under their own steam. This is something the left often have big trouble understanding because they're so used to the concept of a million different people all looking the same, thinking the same, acting the same, especially thinking the same. And there's no free will. So what person A does, person B, person C, person D, and so on, what one of them does, all the rest of them do. This is something very normal to the left.
As a result of that, he had his attorney out there, Rudy Giuliani, calling for a trial by combat. Such a person would be prosecuted. They'd be arrested for inciting a riot. They'd be arrested for calling for criminal conduct, and he seemed to gloat over it.
So what are you doing when you whip up the low information people? Because there's people out there, Mr. Senator Leahy, Pat Leahy, who will see you say this. Possibly hard-working people, paid their taxes their whole life. They see you and they will be panicking. They will usher their children down into the bunker because they will see what you've said via CNN or MSNBC, and they will think Donald Trump's going to launch things all over the place because they're low information. They think Biden won graciously. They think all of it, okay? They're going to listen to you because you're an establishment politician. Instead of focusing on Trump doing hypothetical things with launch codes, why don't you stop and focus a bit more on your rhetoric? Then you might get to the bottom of what happened on that fateful day, which I condemn the actions. I understand their anger, but I condemn their actions. Instead of looking to Trump and things he's done and things he's said, why don't you look at yourselves? I think deep down, if there's a shred of humanity in your body, and that goes for Nancy Pelosi and all the rest of them, you know deep down, and your allies in the mainstream media, you know deep down, I believe you do anyway, because I'm an optimistic person, that on some level, it was you who whipped them up. It was you and your actions and your words demonizing your own fellow Americans every day, every night, every week, every month for the last 4 years. The divide itself was created by you. The divide has been widened and pushed and ripped apart by you, not by Donald Trump. Just because you couldn't accept an outsider had the temerity to run for election and then he actually got elected. You've never forgiven him for that because he's an outsider. He's not going to line your pockets, which is what you really want. That's why you got into politics in the first place. Not to help people. You wouldn't be shouting off at the mouth about launch codes if you wanted to help people. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell and share this video around. That'll help me stay competitive with the likes of CNN and MSNBC. I need that help more than ever because YouTube is trying to section off commentary channels. They don't want any kind of independent thought or commentary. Let that sink in. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.